Hey, what's up, everybody? Jeff Jurina here, and welcome to the Men Unplugged Show. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking with best-selling recording artist and songwriter Jason Gray. Now, in a very real conversation, you're going to hear about Jason's life, some of his victories, some of his struggles, including how he's leaned on the Lord since being divorced, and you're also going to hear a little bit about his new album. Now, before we dive into that conversation, I want to let you know that my new book, Cut Through the Noise, 4 Steps to Joy, Peace, and Freedom, just released today, July 20th, 2021. Can I get an amen? Awesome. If you've already pre-ordered a copy of the book, I want to say thank you for doing that. Your support really means a lot. Just one small purchase of that book or any of my other books or courses helps support the show and my ministry to reach others for Jesus Christ. So if you were waiting to pick up your copy before the book went live today, you can get yours now at menunplugged.net/noise. That's NOISE. When you do, you're also going to get some free bonus audio, which includes several interviews with top Christian leaders where I ask them what they do to break through the noise in their own lives. Which means if you've already purchased a copy, please make sure you access that page in the book, which is just before the book's introduction with a link to access those recordings. In Cut Through the Noise, I'm going to walk you step by step through a proven 4-step system that will help you break free from those things that consume your time, drain your energy, and cause you to be distant from God. You're going to gain the knowledge and tools to remove distractions, draw closer to Jesus, regain your focus, and renew your life. To get your copy now, go to menunplugged.net/noise. That's NOISE. All right, let's cue the intro. So the big question is this: how do we as warriors of Jesus Christ, men of God who want to stay battle ready, who want to honor the Lord, and who want to grow in our daily walk, unplug from those things that weigh us down so we can ignite our faith, strengthen our family, and ultimately succeed in every aspect of life? That is the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is Jeff Jurina, and welcome to Men Unplugged. All right, let's meet today's featured guest, Jason Gray. Jason, welcome to the show, brother.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Jeff.
Well, I'm super excited, and I'll tell you what, I don't know if you know this or not, but actually, I don't think you do. I actually went to one of your concerts back in 2008 time frame. It was in Dallas, and I think you were touring with Sean McDonald. I don't know if you remember that.
Gosh, you know what? I do remember that, and have I have an amusing story about that particular date. Actually,
well, I
remember that.
Well, it was nothing funny about me, right? Because I think I met you, but I didn't have the show at the time, and you were,
Sure.
Busy talking with everybody, all the listeners and stuff like that. And I remember you doing this crazy thing with your guitar. And I was like, I play guitar, but I'm not really good at it. And so I was like, I could never do that. That was crazy to me. I don't know what it was, but it was like you did some weird strum pattern. It was nuts.
I can't remember what that would be, but I'm not a great guitar player. I've got 2 or 3 tricks, and it's all smoke and mirrors after that.
And Men Unplugged, here's what Jason wanted me to share early on. He wanted me to point out that he said, look, Jeff, bring this up early on in the podcast so everybody doesn't think that their audio is cutting out. So Jason has a speech impediment, and he wanted me to share that. But here's the crazy thing. Just like Mel Tillis, when Mel sings and when Jason sings, it's not there. I mean, it's amazing to me how that works. So tell us something interesting about yourself that most people don't know, Jason, and then get into that story a little bit about when you were touring with Sean McDonald back in 2007, 2008.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, I did want people to understand that I have a speech handicap so that they don't think, oh, this guy's freaking out, it's just what I do. Hopefully it's endearing, and it's true that I, if I sing, it goes away, which means I could sing everything, but that might be more awkward than the actual speech handicap, so
No, that's okay. I just won't be able to respond in kind. I'll have to talk because I'm
right,
not a good singer.
right. Somebody in an interview was asking me about that yesterday, and I said there are a couple theories about that I know of. One is that you're accessing a different part of your brain when you sing, but the other one that seems a little more plausible to me is that my speech handicap, it seems related to breathing. So whatever you have in your brain that tells you how to breathe when you're speaking, I don't have that, and so if I concentrate really, really hard on my breathing, I'm much more fluent, and I've gotten better about that over the years. But it actually requires a lot of concentration. But when you sing, your breathing's already like scheduled in. You already breathe properly when you sing, and so the idea is that that's why it goes away when you sing. But yeah. Something interesting that people might not know about me: I can blow balloons up with my nose 2 at a time. I was in youth ministry. What can I say?
Say what? You can blow balloons with your nose? I've never seen that before, actually. That's crazy.
Yeah, like it was, I used to be a youth pastor, and skills like that came in handy for overnight lock-ins.
I would say so. Hey, I don't need a Kleenex. Just give me a balloon. I'm good to go.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So, the story in Dallas was we were on tour with Sean McDonald, and it was me, Sean McDonald, and a band called Down Here. And the promoter, first thing when we got there, it was clear that he was a big Sean McDonald fan. He was all about Sean McDonald, and we were kind of like invisible to him. Like he just wanted to. We were kind of in the way of him enjoying Sean McDonald, And we were feeling it the whole day, and that's okay. That's not uncommon and stuff, but it reached its peak when he was introducing us that night. He goes, "Hey, you guys excited to hear Sean McDonald tonight?" Everyone's going, "Yeah." He goes, "All right, cool. But first up, we're going to hear from Justin Gray and Down Under." Instead of Jason Gray and Down Here. He didn't even know our names.
Oh man. I'm trying to think if that happened. Was that like Dallas D. Bellum or something? I can't remember where that was in Dallas.
It was in Dallas.
That might have been the one. I'm pretty sure that was the one I was at. Yeah. So what were you thinking when he said that? Were you thinking this is not going to go well?
I thought this is a great story this person has given me that I'll get to tell people for years about the time when the two opening bands were introduced with completely the wrong names because he was all about the headliner. So yeah. That's
a good way to look at it. So, when you're talking earlier about this speech impediment, what was just coming across my mind is, and Men Unplugged, I'll just tell you that this one, obviously you guys, that I prep before every one of these interviews. And on this one, I told Jason before we got going, I think the Holy Spirit's going to guide us here more so than a lot of these, because I just feel like maybe there's something that you're going to share that is much different than what I originally thought we needed to get across. And right here, when you talked about the speech impediment, what just came across my mind was, a lot of us, or most of us, there is something that we struggle with. There is some handicap that we have, maybe for some individuals, they're not good at speaking in public. I'm talking about, at a job, they're like, okay, hey, you need to go up here and speak. And they're like, I don't really want to do that. Or maybe somebody is just not really technically, they don't have a lot of technical aptitude. So there's a lot of different handicaps that we have. But yet, what you've learned to get as far as you've gotten right now in the Christian music industry is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you have overcome that. You've learned how to overcome it. So explain to me, give me maybe one or two tips that you can share with the Men Unplugged audience on what you've learned how to overcome this particular obstacle.
I think maybe what has been overcome, like I would almost use the word accept more than overcome, but what has probably been overcome is my own ego's need to be impressive, you know. But very early on, as I began to be aware of God's calling on my life, I used to argue with him about it, saying, "You can't make me your spokesperson until you make it so I can speak," you know. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience or not, but when you tell God that he can't do something, it's kind of like a dare that he can't resist, you know. And so, hey, everybody, that's why I do what I do, because I lost a dare with the Almighty, you know. But I remember very early on imagining it as a liability, as a problem, as an obstacle, and not sure how this was going to work. And then I remember a moment where I realized, oh, of course, I can see it so clearly now. I can't believe I didn't see it earlier. I've got a speech handicap. You're calling me to speak for you. That means that when I step out in faith and trust you, you're going to make it go away.
Right.
And then that'll be my testimony, that if you trust God as your healer, he will show up for you, you know. And all that seemed right in my mind, you know. And so then I thought that was the program, and I was like, okay, I'll show up for that, you know. And then that began many years of me trying to muster up enough faith to get God to do what I believed he was going to do. And I'd step up to the mic and stutter horribly, and I think, okay, I'm just not believing hard enough, or maybe it's true what the person at my church is saying, that I've got sin in my life, you know. And that had me on the shame try harder treadmill for a number of years, as increasingly I felt like God was dangling my healing in front of me, just out of my reach,
Like a carrot.
And
like you got to keep going farther to get this.
Yeah. And like, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't quite get there. And that, you know, brought me to a come to Jesus moment, I guess, you know, where I was like, what do you want from me? I'm giving my best. I'm doing everything I know. If my best isn't good enough, that's all I have to give is my best. But I keep stepping out in faith, and you're not meeting me there. And that hurts, and it's confusing, and it's frustrating, and it's not a good look for you either. So what's going on here? And I was angry. But I couldn't stop going out and playing songs and sharing the stories, because it was like a fire shut up in my bones, you know, like Jeremiah says. And I remember around about that time where, you know, the shame, try harder, anger at God, confused, frustrated, not sure what's going on. Is God the problem? Am I the problem? I was playing a show at this coffee shop in Mankato, Minnesota, and I stuttered horribly that night.
No, not singing though. Speaking, not singing. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Well, like you know, if you've seen me, you know that I like to do a lot of sharing between the songs and storytelling, you know. So I got done and was just embarrassed by how things went. I just wanted to hide, but there's no place to hide, because it was just the stage and the coffee shop, you know, like there was no back room. So I step off the stage when I'm done, and I'm just packing up my things. I just want to go home. And I notice a line of people forming behind me. And I turn around and I begin to talk with them. Surprised that they wanted to talk with me at all. Like I remember I had a hard time looking them in the eye. My face was hot just because I felt humiliation,
Oh, I hate that feeling. Oh,
Yeah. And then one after the other, I just began to hear variations of the same story. Jason, thank you for what you did this evening. Being up there. It reminds me that I'm not defined by my weaknesses either. Or the person who said, Jason, thank you for what you did up there, because God's been speaking to me about something for me to do. And I've been arguing with him about why I'm the wrong person for the job. And you're kind of a disaster if you can do your thing. Surely I can do my thing.
And you're like, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. And I remember going home that night and realizing that the thing that spoke to people wasn't about the songs I shared or the stories I told. It didn't have anything to do with that. What spoke to people, what the Holy Spirit used to minister to people, was simply the fact that I was broken, imperfect, flawed, and I got up there and I did it anyway, And that caused me to realize, maybe God's not going to heal me of my speech impediment, but maybe he wants to bring healing to others through it. And that was a real paradigm shift in my life. About that time, I was reading a book called The Wounded Healer, and it was about, the basic idea of it is that, it's through Jesus's wounds that we are healed. Why would we expect that it would be any different? That it's through our wounds that God brings healing to others. So anyway, on that drive home, I thought, well, that's a much more beautiful idea than the one that I had. And if that's the plan, all right, I'll show up for that. And that has led to, 20 years of getting to stand before my audience and to say, if you think you're too weak or broken or flawed or failed too much or whatever it is, if you think you're too much of all of that to be used of the Lord, you're mistaken. And it's not that he's going to use you in spite of those things, but he's actually going to use you because of them. And that's what my speech handicap has taught me. If you'll allow me to, I want to explain one more aspect of that that's been
sure, go ahead.
revolutionary for me. So I've gotten to talk with audiences about that, over the years, and grateful for that. But I've been afraid in recent years that maybe it's not as relatable as it could be, because maybe there's something a little special or novel or inspirational or even kind of sexy about a person with a speech handicap who gets on the microphone anyway. There's just something a little kind of special about that. And maybe that's not relatable unless you also have some kind of handicap, But I think it's true for every kind of weakness, So these days I like to share with my audience about two other weaknesses I have that aren't special or novel or sexy at all, and are hopefully more relatable. And they are these: I'm profoundly insecure, and I'm a people pleaser.
Oh, those are two tough ones right there. Yeah.
So being an insecure people pleaser, I've hated these things about me for as long as I can remember, and have tried to exorcise them from my life, But, recently it's been like, it's gotten better, but it seems clear to me that these parts of who I am, they're here to stay, and it's just a part of being Jason Gray, right? And so I accepted it. And the thing is once I accepted it, it could become a gift, just like my speech. Once I accepted my speech, it could become a gift, because a thing can't become a gift until you accept it, right? And so the gift of being an insecure people pleaser means that when I'm standing before an audience, I really want them to like me, like so bad. Like I just, but please like me, you know? And I hold that in me as a kind of anxiety. And what is great about that, the gift of that, is that anxiety tunes me into the room, and it means that I can feel it. I can feel it if I'm losing them or boring the audience, or if I've alienated or offended them. I can feel it because I'm an insecure people pleaser and I have that anxiety in me. I can feel all that, which means I can respond to it. I can throw in a joke, switch up the songs. I can do whatever has to be done to draw them back in, which makes me better at my job. Like if I were more whole, I'd be like, I don't care what these people think. I'm going to sing and say whatever I want, you know?
Right.
But it turns out that I have just enough insecurity and people pleasing to be useful to the Lord, you know? And so that brings me to this point with my audience where I get to say, I bet everybody in this room and everybody tuned into this podcast, you've got something about yourself that you hate, and you beat yourself up about it and have been for years, which is to say that, you know, when we do that, we're holding hands with the accuser of the brethren, right? Who accuses us day and night.
Right.
And I just want to suggest that maybe there's something else we can do, right? Rather than beating ourselves up, maybe we can bring these parts of ourselves before the Lord and say, well, these seem useless to me, but I wonder what you might do with it. And we might discover that these very things that we've had contempt for in ourselves are actually crucial pieces of the puzzle that are in our lives, so that we can do what God has given us to do and be who He has intended us to be in the world. And we can stop beating ourselves up, and we can, go out there as God's craftsmanship, prepared in advance for good works to do. So,
man, that's well said. You took up half the segment, man. Let me just tell you.
I'm sorry.
It's crazy. Okay,
I got
so
a speech handicap, so I like it. You know,
I know, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let it. He's rolling. The Holy Spirit's moving through him. Okay, so when you were sharing that early on, the first verse that came to my mind was a verse that I share on a lot of podcasts, and when I speak, I share this a lot. It's Zechariah 4:6. It says, "Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord."
Yeah.
And I think what I've realized in my life, what I've experienced, is, there's some things that I'm like, okay, God, I get it. It's not by my power. I'm going to let you have that. You've got that. It's by your Spirit. And there's other things that I'm like, I'm not really good at, but I feel like I am. And I'm like, God, I don't trust that you're going to do this the right way. So I'm going to try to take the reins back. I'm going to, this false illusion of control I talk about all the time. We have this false illusion of control. So I'm like, okay, Lord, I know you could do better at this, but you're not doing it fast enough. You're not doing it the way that I want it. So let me control it here. Let me manage it. And when I do that, almost every time, Jason, and I know the Men Unplugged audience can vouch for this, probably in something in their life, is that it ends up becoming a wreck, and it is never done the right way. It's never done how I think it's going to be. And what happens is, here's what happens. I'm talking about this in my new book, Cut Through the Noise. A lot of times these distractions in your life, they're a delay. It can delay a blessing from God. Okay. Yeah. It can delay, obviously, your focus. It can delay completing that task. It can delay feeling your purpose. And so talk to me a little bit about that you obviously figured out how to turn this around. Okay. But when you started early on, did you ever think, man, was I actually going to get this right? And I think really the question for me is, I really want to hone this into last year. When we hit the pandemic back in 2020, okay? I know you had to do some concerts a different way. Yeah. What was going on in your mind then where you like, whoa, I'm in a different uncharted territory and I don't know how this is gonna play out?
Yeah. I'll try to answer that. One thing that came into my head as you were speaking though is the idea of distractions, and like it made me think for the first time in my life, actually, as you were speaking, like what if the areas that we are competent in, what if our competencies can be distractions?
No, I actually talk about that in the book. Absolutely.
Yeah,
They are.
yeah.
Because it's a sense of pride and you think I'm good on that.
Right. Yeah. That's great. I mean, when I do concerts, my the problem is I know how to do a concert. That's a problem,
Yeah.
And my favorite part of the night is usually the VIP meet and greet before the concert begins, because it's unscripted and I can't control it, and there's opportunities for the Holy Spirit to show up in surprising ways. So anytime that I can lose control, that can be real positive, You asked me about the new way of doing shows,
and I know it's going to be different now because things are opening up, but back then in 2020 and early on 2021, it's a little bit different.
Yeah. The main thing that was different was just, the booking of the shows, because I've got a booking agency, and they're working with promoters and high profile churches and a lot of places that were more hamstringed, but I had sent a message out through my socials, anyone who wanted to bring me in, and I was able to work with individuals and smaller churches who were more agile and able to navigate some of the restrictions, But I think the biggest thing that I experienced in all of that was I went through a divorce 6 years ago, and that broke my heart and broke a lot of things in my life. One of the things it broke was my ability to pray and my ability to trust God, because in the midst of my divorce, like there wasn't anything that I've ever prayed harder for than for my marriage to be restored and redeemed. And when that didn't happen, it's just like, well, what can I trust God for then? And my experience of God for years had been that he saves the day. He comes in at the 11th hour sometimes, but he always saves the day. And he didn't save the day with my marriage. And it just like, it made it so I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know how to trust for a long time.
So the question that you had then, Jason, probably would be why? Why didn't you fix it? Why didn't God fix it?
Why didn't you, or fix me, or whatever had to be done? But what the pandemic restored in me was that like my means of making income was taken away from me.
Yeah,
and I'm still here, and I had a year of seeing how God provided in order to meet my needs, and that has healed some of what was lost in my divorce, and so I'm still growing in all of that, but I think that was the biggest thing, and so it has shifted. I think I had come to trust myself to be my own provider by working hard, being diligent, all those things. And the biggest difference in this last year was that it helped shift my trust back to him as my provider.
Now you're talking to me, man. Quit preaching to me now.
Okay, good.
No, this is good because I can relate with that. What happened with the pandemic? I was just about to get a 3-year sponsorship deal.
Yeah.
That would have been massive for 3 years for the show. It would have given me a lot more flexibility. I could have hired more people to do a bunch of the tech stuff that it's really a killer to do. But what happened was the investor's wife, when the pandemic rolled out, 2 to 3 weeks after, the wife told the husband, you know what? I don't think we should do this. Man, that was a heavy blow. Let me just tell you, that hit. And like you have to pivot. You have to adjust. And we're not the only two here that have had to do that. Everybody in the world has had to adjust. But the thing is, at the end of the day, you have to adjust knowing that wherever you pivot towards, number one, you got to better make sure that you're pivoting towards the Lord. Because if you're doing that, right, draw near to God and He'll draw near to you. If you do that, then He's going to prosper and make you successful. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily financially right away, but your spirit is going to be prosperous. Your soul is going to be prosperous. And your mindset is going to be right. Okay? You got to focus on the eternal perspective. So we're going to really dive in deeper here, like we haven't already, Jason. I mean, really, this is some good stuff. But we're going to dive in a little bit deeper here to ask him some questions. I want to dive in to the conversation here about what that divorce taught you. I know you talked a little bit about that, what it taught about you and what it showed you about God. And then we're going to talk a little about your new album, which I think is pretty cool. I'll listen to one of the songs, and man, you got to send me a copy of the CD. I got to get that. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about his testimony. So I would just tell you guys, after this short break, make sure you stick around because Jason is really going to get you fired up. Are you stressed out, overwhelmed, or just plain wore out? Wondering how to break through all your daily distractions? Unplug from those things that weigh you down. Hear God among all the chaos and confusion and spend more quality time in your relationships? If so, I want to invite you to pick up a copy of my new book, Cut Through the Noise, 4 Steps to Joy, Peace, and Freedom. In this book, you're going to get the proven solution to these problems and more, along with the knowledge and tools to reclaim, refuel, and renew your life. To get your copy today, visit menunplug.net/noise. That's NOISE. All right, Men Unplugged, I'm back here with featured guest Jason Gray, and I'll tell you what, this has been an honor here already because I really feel like this is one of those episodes that we are really getting down to the nitty-gritty. We're really getting to the heart of stuff. I mean, we're getting deep, and that's what we are called to do, Men Unplugged. As men of God, we have got to get real, okay? Because if you're real, you're relevant. And if you're relevant, you're radical for Christ. So I think we need to be radical. So let's keep getting real here. Jason, you were just talking there right before the break. You mentioned that you had a divorce 6 years ago. And man, I'm sorry to hear that. My heart goes out to you. I know that from what I've heard from others, that is a painful thing. It's like this wound that it never seems to heal. And so let me ask you, how have you gotten to where you are now? Do you feel like God's kind of taking this path where the healing is almost complete?
Gosh, does it ever heal completely? I'm not sure. I'm in a better place than I was. You know, the pain and suffering always bring with it opportunities for growth. You know, they're just, I loved the Lord and I was seeking Him all the time and pursuer of truth. It seems like there's just some truth, some wisdom that at least my experience was, I didn't have access to them until I was completely broken and undone. You know, the name of my new album is Order, Disorder, Reorder. And the idea is, you know, your life was working one way and then catastrophe happens, disorder. And then out of that, you know, you come out the other side stronger, wiser, kinder, more compassionate, all those things. There's a quote I love by Julian of Norwich, who said, first the fall and then the recovery from the fall. Both are the mercy of God.
Mm.
And there's another quote I love, wisdom is healed pain, So the pain, the breaking of my divorce was a great catalyst for transformation in my life, So like, I think about, on the one hand, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. On the other hand, I kind of think it would be helpful in a way for everybody to go through a catastrophe like that, because you do, I don't think I realized, hard to put words to all this, but I don't think I realized how self-righteous I was until I was completely disseminated like that. And all of us are. In fact, I'm inclined to think that self-righteousness is the sin underneath all the other sins. And I think that happens like our desire to be right. Even you and I, as we're speaking now, we're speaking about things that we've learned, insight that we've gained, ways that we think we are right.
Right.
And the danger when we speak about things that we think we have figured out is that we're no longer in discovery mode. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when my marriage blew up, I was like, the world doesn't work the way that I thought it did. God doesn't work the way I thought it did. My wife isn't who I thought she was. Maybe I'm not who I thought I was. Love isn't what I thought it was. So I think that put me in discovery mode. Like I don't know anything anymore. And that opened me up to be able to learn. I had a mentor in my life at that time, and he spoke a lot of wisdom to me in my life at that time. I think, okay, let me bring this around to some actionable ideas, but I've noticed a lot of things. I notice that ideally, it seems to me that the kind of transformation that would be useful to happen to a man would be to go through an experience like this, but hopefully the wife at the last minute sees the transformation and stays in the marriage. I think that would be ideal, but to go through the crucible of your wife's pain and rejection wakes a man up in a way that I think is really good.
It makes you feel helpless in a sense. Like, I can't rescue this beauty. I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing, I'm just thinking off the cuff here. Like, when you have those situations, I would think you would just feel like helpless. Like, whatever I'm doing doesn't seem to work.
That's exactly how I felt. Yeah. I was doing everything that I knew to do. And, but some of the things I learned through all of that is that people see what they've decided to see, So like, if your wife became unhappy and wanted to leave you, if she's decided to do that in her heart, or if you decided to leave her, there's enough evidence in your marriage for you to be like, yeah, I'm out of here because of this and this and this.
Right.
But if you decide to stay, there's enough evidence in your marriage for, no, this is why I should stay. So there's enough evidence in every relationship to stay or to leave, I believe, and we see what we've decided to see. That was a big eye opener to me, So in any relationship now, if I'm wanting out, that's now I'm curious, like, okay, why have I decided to see the things that I'm seeing? What am I up to? That's the biggest question in my life these days, is whatever's going on, I like to ask myself, what am I up to? Because I usually hide my motives from myself, and I have a friendship now with this guy that like there's always a rub, and if I wanted to, I could end that friendship, and at times I've been tempted to, but I ask myself, what am I up to? Why am I wanting out of this friendship? Is it because he challenges me in a way that makes me uncomfortable? And so deep down, I've decided to see all the problems in him so that I can give myself a pass for leaving the relationship,
When you talked about lessons there, it just made me realize that lessons learned are lessons lived.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to go through these lessons to learn from them. It's almost like what you're talking about is, what is the filter that we're seeing and hearing others through?
Yeah.
And I could just tell you that for me, my filter is skewed a lot of times. And I'm saying that, I'm not saying that in a good way. I'm saying that, in a bad way, like realizing, man, maybe I need to change my filter about certain things. And when you talk about righteousness, it's this idea of pride. Now, when you went through this divorce, do you feel like at the beginning pride was there, and then towards the end you were like, okay, Lord, I have no pride left. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah. Like, how do I put words to that? Okay, I'm going to say something controversial, and maybe I'm a jerk. Maybe I'm an angry.
It's okay, man. It's Men Unplugged. We're real on this show, man.
I think a lot of men would resonate with it. Well, yeah, gosh, I have a pause in my spirit that maybe I shouldn't say that thing. I'll say this thing. I was reading a book called Intimate Allies by Dan Allender, and one of the ideas that I'm going to try to paraphrase here is that when you break down the curse in Genesis, that, when you conceptualize it, you could boil it down to the curse for men is that they will, always feel like they're never enough. And the curse for the women is that they'll feel like they're too much. That's very easy to see with men, right? Like the curse was, you will eat by the sweat of your brow, you'll work the ground, and there'll be weeds and thistles. And it's this idea of futility that no matter how hard I try, it's never quite enough, And I think men are very tuned into failure, which is why I think respect is very important to a man. Like,
right.
If someone disrespects you, man, it hurts. It feels like a kind of hell, So I think men are very tuned into futility and failure, which is also why I think men are vulnerable to pornography. Like I've been working out this hypothesis, and I still have some work to do on it. But basically, what I wonder is, what is the allure of pornography? It's a fantasy world where a woman is all accepting and just has a yes toward you, right?
Right.
And I think that soothes or speaks to the part of a man who's afraid that he's not enough. At least in the fantasy world of pornography, he can imagine that he's enough for a few minutes, you know. I think that that's the allure there. So I think that men very much have this innate need to feel like they aren't a failure, to feel like they're competent, to feel like they're noble, you know. So I remember a thing that my mentor spoke to me in that season, because I was trying to save my marriage, and there was something about me trying to save my marriage that there's a piece of that is right and authentic, but there was another piece where I was in a noble fight to save my marriage that maybe I was subconsciously stroking my own self-righteousness, this image of myself as the heroic, you know.
Meaning like you didn't want to lose. You didn't want other people to see that you've lost, so to speak, that you had it all together.
Not even that, just that I wanted to do the right thing.
Okay.
And my mentor, he said this thing that when he spoke it, I didn't understand it, but I could taste that it was true. He said, the last thing a Christian man will surrender is his desire to do the right thing.
Man, that's interesting.
I know.
Huh. And that's a whole nother episode right there.
I know. And I thought about that a lot. And that helped me to, you know, he helped me to see, like, there was this moment where I wanted to do, you know, and anything that we do, it's never just one thing or one motivation. There's always like 20 layers to everything that we do, right? So there was a moment where my in-laws were in town, and I thought this would probably be the last time I see them, and I had loved them. And I was up in the spare room, exhausted and depressed, and they were in town because it was we were in the midst. It was going to be our day in court, and I thought, do I go down and say goodbye? Like, I don't think they're, you know, is that just going to be awkward? And I don't think they like me very much right now because they have picked her side for sure. And that's understandable. You know, I remember my mentor, he asked me in moments like that, ask, what would Jason Gray do? And that's been a really helpful question for me to ask for all kinds of things in my life, to ask, okay, what would Jason Gray do? Which is to say, in my ideal conceptualization of who I'd want to be, what would that person do? And I thought, I think that person would go downstairs and say goodbye. And so I decided to do that, you know, and it hurt and it was painful. And I came back upstairs and I called my mentor. He also helped me to see how it was a grab for dignity.
That's big.
It was two things at once. It was me trying to be me, but it was also a grab for dignity, that there was something noble and dignified to go down there. And I was so beat down that I needed to have a sense of dignity. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it was good for me to have all these motives kind of laid bare for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so many things are happening at the same time, anytime we do anything. And it's good to honor the complexity of all of that, to realize I was being true to myself and I was doing a grab for dignity at the same time, you know, and life is like that.
I really appreciate you sharing that, because that right there, that is real, that's authentic. And when you talked about the hardest thing that maybe men that we have to give up is the right to do the right thing, I think is how you phrased it. You know, what I've realized is what's helped me, and I hope Men Unplugged this will help you, is that if you have enough compelling reasons why you should do the right thing. I mean, if you list them out, don't just think about them in your head, but if you write all these reasons down, why you should do a certain thing, and if that's the right thing, if those reasons are compelling enough, to me, it's much easier to do the right thing. I'm not saying it's difficult. I'm just saying it's much easier when you know what the reasons are. You got to know the why, not the how, but you got to know the why. Jason, tell me in your new album here, Order, Disorder, Reorder.
Yeah.
Tell me, what was the hardest song for you to write? And then tell me why.
That's a good question. Maybe Right on Time, which is the second to the last song. And that song was born out of a moment, actually directly from my divorce. It was 3 a.m. and I was laying on my bathroom floor, crying out to God, afraid that my life that I had always felt like he had in his hands, that it was slipping through his fingers or something like, it seemed like everything was going wrong. And it seemed clear that my marriage was going to end in divorce and that he wasn't going to save the day. And I was just so confused, and my world seemed godless, actually. And I'm laying on my bathroom floor, weeping, 3 a.m., and all of a sudden I heard a voice in my heart say, "Or what if this is all right on time? What if everything that's happening now is converged on your life at this moment to make available to you the kind of transformation that you've always been praying for?" And that really helped me to be at peace, helped me to receive everything that was happening as though it was from the hands of the Lord. And it moved me from a posture of, oh, no, this can't be happening, to, okay, what do I need to learn? What do I need to be, how can I be transformed in all of this? And, so, and that again has a lot to do with the idea of acceptance as opposed to resistance. I think as men, we're taught to resist and to fight, and that's a good instinct, but accepting and absorbing, it's been good for me to learn that too, I want to, speak to something I heard you say a moment ago, if that's okay.
Sure.
About making a list. In the midst of my divorce, as my mentor was helping me, he said, and he's this real manly man. He's the most masculine man that I know. He's tough as nails, and he is not easy on me at all. But he said, men always want to make a to-do list. He said, I encourage you to make a do not do list and pray about it. And he believed that I would hear from the Holy Spirit in a new way if I made a do not do list. And my first do not do list had things in it like, do not defend yourself. Do not have the last word in an argument or a conversation. Do not ask why questions was a good one. And I'm just speaking this out there in case this helps anybody else, but he helped me to see how asking why questions have an accusation in it and a demand that you would explain yourself. For instance, when my boys were starting to be into rap music, and I was anxious about that because I was like, oh, why are they listening to this rap music, and what's that mean? And
right.
Rather than ask them, why are you listening to rap music, which would make them defensive and feel like they have to explain themselves, he said, replace your why questions with what questions. What is it about that song you like? What is it about rap music you like? And that encourages dialogue and conversation. rather than my tendency, and I think a lot of men, because we feel like we need to lead and tell our kids what they need to hear, we can be tempted to do a lot of monologues. And, I've got this opinion about something and what I think is true, and it's my responsibility to tell you what that is. And I can launch into a monologue rather than going into a dialogue where I'm creating a space where my kids and I, or my wife and I, can actually talk to each other and have conversation. Asking what questions, it was a major key in that. So what is it about that you like? What do you feel right now? Oh, another thing. This was the most transformational thing that my mentor helped me with. He said, the three most important words you can say to a person who's angry with you is "tell me more."
That's a good words of wisdom there, Jason. I love that. That's a great way to wrap up this episode. And guys, we're going to have a bonus audio interview here that I'm going to have with Jason. It's going to be probably about 10 minutes long, give or take 3 minutes. And this is going to be, we're just going to go a little bit deeper here. This is on that Men Unplugged Podcast Pro Pass, which you guys can get right now at menunplugged.net/pro. It's Jason, it's other top leaders. I give you other episodes that are not on the regular Men Unplugged show. And I'm just going to tell you guys, this is really going to help you go the next level in your faith, your family, your finances, anything that you're really trying to succeed in life. It's really going to help you go to that next level. So Men Unplugged, as we close this episode out, I want to remind you that you get everything that we're talking about, including a link to Jason's website where you can get his new album. You can get that on, Apple, you can get iTunes, you can get it on Spotify, you can get it everywhere. I want to encourage you to check that out. Where can you get it?
My garage.
Oh, his garage? Yeah. Well, no, he's not going to give you his address, but you can get it everywhere, okay? But I'm going to give you a link right there where you can get that. Go to his website. Also, a link to the Men Unplugged Podcast Pro Pass that you can sign up today, guys. And look, you can try that out for just $5. That's it. It's very, very cheap. And here's where you go. Go to menunplugged.net/podcast/Gray. That's Gray for Jason Gray. So with that said, Jason, I'm telling you, man, you rock the mic. And it was awesome to speak with you in person again, because it just brought me back to that concert, just watching you do that crazy stuff with the guitar. It was amazing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, that wraps up today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to visit menunplugged.net/podcast/Gray, that's Gray, to access the full show notes for this episode, as well as a link to purchase Jason's new album. And also that link to get your copy of my new book, Cut Through the Noise, 4 Steps to Joy, Peace, and Freedom, which is now available. In this book, you're going to get the proven solution to break through all your daily distractions, unplug from those things that weigh you down, and hear God among all the chaos and confusion. To get yours today, visit menunplugged.net/noise. Until next time, stay plugged in and recharged. God bless.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. There's plenty more to see at menunplugged.net, including key resources and ways to engage with Jeff in his training and speaking forums. While there, don't forget to subscribe and receive a free gift. We look forward to you joining us next time here on the Men Unplugged Show.